It's a strange spot that I find myself in regards to Sucker Punch Studios and Ghost of Yotei. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because unlike Ubisoft or BioWare, they don't really have a track record of being ideological pawns. They more or less just put out a game that they want to. They make the best of the situation afforded to them and they may crank out a banger. Ghost of Tsushima, widely regarded as one of the best Souls-like non-from software games, right? And earlier this year, the PC port of Tsushima was a massive success, and so when it was announced that finally we're going to be getting a Ghost follow-up, Yotei comes out, and, well, it's got a female protagonist. And of course, I can hear the eyes rolling and everybody, well, justifiably so. You see a chick come in and tread on a normally male franchise, and it's like, okay, we've been here time and time again, so I understand the trepidation by so many people that are out there. It's just, I would say that this is a different situation because, well, it's different people. And then you take a look at the actress, Erika Ishii, and well, she's a rabid feminist. But then again, okay, and I know it sounds like an awful lot of apology being done over the top of this, where if you could just simply set aside the actor from the acting, you can separate the art from the artist. One of my favorite actors, I say time and time again, is Robert De Niro. The dude's a total nut job. But the gangster genre wouldn't be what it is today without his talents. Travis Kelce is a shill and a half for Big Pharma and Bud Light, but he's going to go down in history as one of, if not the best tight ends ever in football. So is it impossible for Erika Ishii to do a great job and to not let her ideological trappings influence the game? Of course it is. Is it likely, especially in 2024, and especially after it was let known, or at least a rumor slip, that Sucker Punch was indeed working on a Ghost of Tsushima 2, and that Sony and a bunch of other note takers came over the top of this and said, no, you need to make a girl boss game? I guess. Oh, man. I always reserved the right to be wrong when it came to this and would require a little bit more information. Or at least, right? Like, here we are, and I think it's supposed to be early December where, you know, the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's little gaming circle jerk. There's going to be a bunch of trailers for the upcoming games. And, well, tentatively, Ghost of Yotei is scheduled for 2025. So if there's going to be any more word on this game before the end of the year, chances are we're going to be hearing from it then. So yeah, I guess we could do a follow-up on it then, but as it sits right now, there's just a bunch of rumors, and yeah, it doesn't really inspire confidence, but I've arrived at my conclusion based on my own principles, and yes, willing to be proven wrong, and if and when I am, definitely will be joining the hordes, not supporting this game, but I would rather be proven wrong than being discredited as being equally as ideological as you're accusing other people of being. That's just where I'm at when it comes to this one. But Sucker Punch, according to a rumor, Sucker Punch gutted and repurposed Ghost of Tsushima sequel for Ghost of Yotei. You could take that a couple of different ways. They were told to course correct. You're moving away from Tsushima 2 to Yotei, meaning that, well, they already had all the architecture for Tsushima, meaning that it was going to be a follow-up of their original masterpiece, meaning that you're going to be getting a hell of a good game off of this, or it could be a rush job. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Don't know for sure right now. A new rumor alleges that Sucker Punch Productions, the developers of Ghost of Tsushima and the upcoming Ghost of Yotei, gutted and repurposed a planned Ghost of Tsushima sequel and created Yotei out of its bones. Okay, so I guess it's a little bit of both, potentially. The latest rumor comes from, Endymion, who's been going back and forth with Colin Moriarty on some. I don't even know, man. Like, I've been tangentially made aware of this. I've said before, when it comes to quote-unquote mainstream, or at least as close to as establishment games journalism as it gets, I don't mind Colin Moriarty. I've laid my criticisms of Endymion out there. I think he's the quintessential boy who cries woke. But in general, I think he does more good work than he does damage. This is my opinion on it. And I've used that Park Place, who has cited him time and time again for different stories. And yeah, I've come to my own conclusions on this. And more often than not, I agree with his conclusions. It's just sometimes he goes off the deep end. But yes, he first shared that a source informed him Sony Japan is pissed off about being kept in the dark over the sudden changes of the game's narrative. Okay, and this is definitely a different departure because I've heard of this, and we've talked about this before, how Yotei was a repurposed Tsushima 2, is that Sony was the one making the decisions. But now you're saying that Sony Japan is the one who's caught off guard by this. What's going on? Okay, he added, it does seem that there's a huge disconnect between Sucker Punch knowing about this Ghost sequel versus what the Sony PR's team knew. Interesting, because yeah, I've heard multiple different things. You can go back and take a look at all the different videos we've done on this, but Sucker Punch was going one direction, Sony was telling them to go in another, and now that's flip reverse, where Sucker Punch wanted to go the girl boss route, and Sony was... What? This is why, okay? This is why we need a little bit more clarification here. Next he shared, as I was told, like before when I reported on Yotei last, the game was indeed supposed to be Tsushima 2 with Jin Sakai as the main character. Now this has been confirmed to me by at least sources? One source? Two source? I don't know. And I was told the skeleton of Tsushima 2 is what's largely being used to create Yotei into what it is now. Well, yeah, because we've seen the press release from Sucker Punch where they're really excited about this game. We've been working on it for a while, which, yeah, I guess whatever form and fashion it was over the past 5 years since the original release of Tsushima. I would imagine they were probably working on a follow-up. And yeah, if it's going to be in the same franchise, it's going to be spinning the Ghost into something greater than just simply the Jin Sakai story. You would imagine that there's going to be a fair amount of crossover when it comes to narrative structure, gameplay mechanics. There would definitely be some repurposing if you were going to go ahead and categorize it as that, so makes sense. I was told the skeleton of Tsushima 2 largely being used to create Yotei into what it is now. I would assume that likely Jin would come to Mount Yotei, and then this is where he'd be facing the next Mongol threat, but within the past 2 years, something has definitely changed at Sucker Punch. Yeah, that's interesting because Yotei, as it sits right now, is 300 years in the future. 300 years or 600 years? It's a considerable amount of time when Jin he's going to be very much dead and in the ground, okay? Because that story took place in the 11th century. I think this one is 600 years later. Regardless, it's a different time frame. He continued, the entire narrative was effectively gutted, from what I'm being told, and repurposed into the story about Atsu now. And you've seen the new trailer. The whole wandering Ronin being hunted by other bounty hunter story was presented in Yotei. I'm assuming was originally supposed to be a Ronin hunting Jin Sakai as the Ghost. Okay. I mean, that's a logical extrapolation. Well, we'll see. Endymion then shared information provided to him from a source regarding the number of individuals who joined Sucker Punch around the last 2 years or so. First, he pointed to Jen Lee Luchin, who began working at Sucker Punch in March of 2022 as a producer. Oh boy, where has she worked at before? He then pointed to Adriana Martinez, senior writer and narrative designer at Sucker Punch, who joined the company in May of 2023. Pointed to Courtney Woods, who joined Sucker Punch as senior staff writer in September of 2022, and pointed to Kelly Snyder, who became the senior producer at Sucker Punch in September of 2023. 4 for 4, huh? I'm sure they were all hired on merit and through no other means possible. Nope, of course not. Given these individuals joined the company, and Endymion said, as you notice, as I show these other examples, these writers and such, they all came to this project rather late in production on Yotei, almost as if the game was something else entirely before it became Yotei. I don't necessarily think that that's a charitable interpretation of events. They could have just been late hires, okay? Don't even know their backgrounds. But also, yeah, turnaround time on games like this, 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4 years, in some cases, the bigger projects. I mean, you bring in a senior staff writer that late in the game, like you should already, generally speaking, video games are going to follow a similar strategy when it comes to developing an idea the same way that Hollywood would. Go about it. You would theoretically have your script and then you would shoot it, and then you'd have all your post-production. Same thing with video games, right? Like you're going to have your narrative and then you're going to create your gameplay elements over the top of that, and then you're just going to develop it from there. So that seems quite late to come around and start mixing a bunch of stuff up, given the fact that the earliest inclusion on this list is from March of 2022, and that's a producer, and it's just simply a producer. The most consequential person, senior writer, narrative designer, May of 2023, joined the company. Working on something else? Don't know for sure. But yes, on top of that information, Endymion also shared that Sony's currently deciding what to price Yotei at, and how to promote the game going forward. Yeah, interesting. Okay, because if this was just simply turned around in the time that all the new hires were out there, and this ends up getting priced lower than that, It's very possible that all of those new hires created something completely different from the scraps of a either scrapped or severely postponed Ghost of Tsushima 2. I don't know. As I was told, currently Yotei is being considered at Sony as pushed off as a spin-off title of the Ghost series instead of a mainline game. That could be interesting. Okay, yeah, just expanding this premise of the Ghost out there, telling a bunch of different smaller stories, meanwhile keeping the main line something maybe a little bit more sequential. Because, yeah, you got the big old gap, right? The 600 year gap. There's a lot of stories to tell there in the middle, so yeah, okay. This was not the original plan, as I've been told, however, but yeah, things change, man. Like, the gaming industry it's one of those things right now where it's the biggest dog in the yard, but at the same time, they've got to evolve, or they're just gonna fall by the wayside. The game was meant to be the next de facto installment, and the direction Sucker Punch was going to take the game series. Next, he detailed the way Sony is currently looking at Yotei is they might advertise the game as Miles Morales game, if you will, as compared to something like Spider-Man. Okay, we're talking it might not be as big as Tsushima was, and might cost less money, as well as release when Miles Morales did when it launched the PS5 day one. Huh, interesting. Kind of be like maybe a really pretty tech demo for the PS5 Pro, which didn't that just launch? Like, it's kind of crazy, right? Like, you have a generational refresh and it has zero fanfare. Crazy. Endymion had revealed much of the information in previous videos where he claimed that Ghost of Tsushima would likely get delayed to 2026, a little over a week after Sucker Punch's production. Senior communications manager Andrew Goldfarb declared the game would arrive sometime in 2025. And yeah, that was from the announcement trailer at, what was that, Sony's State of Play, which I thought was pretty good. A lot of people were like, oh, it's all woke, it's got the girl boss over the top of it. But in general, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm still not convinced that this is going to be dead, or it's going to be woke, or you're going to have to let your nuts hang or anything like that. Whatever, man. We're going to have to see a little bit more, because right now we're all going on one trailer and a handful of rumors. I'm not willing to jump to any conclusions one way or another. All I have to do is just simply look at the track record of Sucker Punch, note that they're a pretty consistent, pretty well-performing studio. If things change, if they end up going more BioWare, Naughty Dog, as opposed to Santa Monica Studios, then yeah, sound the alarm. You don't have to buy the game. They're not entitled to your money at the end of the day. But I still think we will likely see something from Sucker Punch at the Game Awards. So yeah, perhaps some of those rumors will be confirmed, or they'll be debunked, but we'll simply have to wait for real information. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.